I'm right here, boss man. I got this, yeah.
You will not win, cause I will not lose. Can't be touched, can't be stopped, can't be moved, can't be rocked, can't be shook. We hot. When will you know? Came to get crunk, came to bring life, came to get started, came to get right. Turn down the music, turn up my mic. When will you
You know, I was surprised to see Tim Tebow highlight in Football's Greatest Jukes. He usually just ran over people.
There were a couple Brandon Jacobs jukes in there, and usually he just like steamrolled people. So
yeah,
I kind of feel like the late '90s, early 2000s with Reggie Bush and like Antonio Brown before he lost his mind, Shady McCoy. What was the Titans running back's name? Chris
Johnson.
Yes, Chris.
I know it was a basic last name.
Yeah, I wanted to say Williams. I was like, I know
Sorry,
it's not Chris Williams. That's Buck's audio guy.
That's right.
Like you could just put together a reel all of its own of each of those guys. Like they just juke people. Like I think even on some occasions, literally out of their shoes. I love that. I love that little highlight reel. That's one of my favorites.
Buck, who is your favorite all-time Raiders player?
I'm biased because obviously there's so many awesome ones like Bo Jackson, and Kenny Stabler, but Charles Woodson.
There we go.
Because I saw him so many times in front of my face, like playing, and he had never picked off Peyton Manning, and when Manning was on the Broncos, they came to Oakland, and I was at the game, and he picked him off twice in it, and the second one was like, it looked like he was flying to grab it over the sideline. It was amazing, and so all the memories I have of seeing him in person, it's Woodson.
Chuck is another Michigan guy, so.
Oh, I know.
And it's interesting that you said that because that's my favorite Packer.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Well,
I was a DB, and like I love watching him and being a Packers fan. That was.
He ended up going back to the Raiders and retiring, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And I thought that was so cool. All the Raider fans were at headquarters waiting for his arrival and greeted him. Like he won a Super Bowl. He didn't have to go back to us, but it was just cool. He's awesome.
I thought it was a very stand up class act move to do that. Like that was very cool. Yeah. As a Packers fan, I really appreciated that too. Like I thought that was neat.
Sure. Well, welcome back, guys.
Thanks.
We will
That's
be
having an emergency.
Yeah, and our fifth guy, Phil will not be with us today, but our fifth guy will be joining us shortly.
Who's the other one?
Matt. Matt will be joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
I was like, did I count it wrong?
Yeah. We're not live yet, are we?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, well, shit. I didn't say anything bad.
Yeah, that was all good.
Yeah.
No, Justin wanted to run his best jukes in football history.
Okay.
clip.
Okay.
So we opened with that a little early, but you were right on time, so you didn't.
Yeah,
fail
you
on the
showed
clock management.
I started early. You showed up on time.
Okay, fair. So this is probably on Twitter, maybe. Have y'all tweeted the link?
I tweeted it yesterday, but I have not tweeted it currently. For right now, we're just on StreamYard until I break down and create another Twitter account for this.
Okay. Okay.
Or on YouTube, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. What are we going to do today? Is there anything other than picks?
So I thought we might go with what Phil brought up in the signal, as we kind of have maybe you and Matt can have like two different NFL takes if you got them.
Okay.
Maybe something that wasn't covered in our preview show, which Matt wasn't there anyways, so you can kind of add in there.
Yeah.
And then while we're actually waiting for Matt, Justin and I might have a couple of college takes to cover.
I actually watched some college ball, which
Nice.
I don't usually, and I'm glad I picked that LSU game to watch. And what an ending!
Quite the ending.
I know the feeling. Sebastian Janikowski did that once, and it's a kick in the gut. But golly, I was at least wanting a tie to watch it to go to overtime, and then it's just like all the air was gone out of the building.
Especially a college overtime, like that's so much fun to get to watch. Like, yes, it can drag out and go like literally for hours, but it's so much fun to just watch them. Like, it's like a test of wills. Like, who's going to just like keep getting back up and hitting the other guy more and consistently.
I think I watched. It was U of H and then UT San Antonio, and theirs went back and forth into multiple overtimes too. Which for us in Texas, the fact that UTSA was competitive with U of H was kind of shocking, but it was a good game too. What's up, Matt?
What's up, Buckery?
How's it going, Matt?
How's it going, guys?
It's going well.
But the only thing I really had from the college side of it, not a whole lot of really big top 25 games. There's like Pitt and Tennessee, but I don't consider that one like an important one necessarily. You've got Bama and Texas, which you and Tho were a lot higher on Texas than I am.
I'm not so high on Texas that I think they'll give Bama a game.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I think this is gonna be like either Texas comes out and they're competitive, and then they may have a good season, or Bama is gonna just beat the absolute brakes off of them, and that's gonna kind of be how the rest of their season goes. And honestly, I think it's gonna be the latter. I think Bama's gonna cover. Like it's a 20.5 is the spread right now, and I still think Bama's covering that.
I could see that. I could see Texas maybe making it a game in the first half, but Bama kind of plays it pretty close to the vest early on, first half, and then the second half, they just kind of wear people out with their athletes and their physicality.
But, and then the only other game that I really thought was necessarily of note was Florida, Kentucky. Just because Florida kind of had that surprise game last week, or well, I don't know, maybe it wasn't all that surprising. I didn't think they would win that for sure. I mean, like I thought they would be competitive, but I definitely didn't think they were going to win that game last week. And then they came out and really showed out. And Kentucky, if Kentucky shows up and performs well and puts it to Florida, I think that could give Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky competes with Georgia for number one in the SEC East. But if Kentucky can come out and perform really well and win this game, like win it handily against Florida, I think they have a good shot at finishing number 2 in the East in the SEC East. So
I can see that too. I think I'm going with Kentucky in that game. My college take actually is not on the field related, but you shared the article about them expanding the playoff to 12 games, potentially starting in 2024. I think what we're eventually going to see is, UCLA, USC, maybe even Oregon, like will eventually or may join the Big Ten for a while. But I think we're going to see like college playoff expansion and realignment, almost like realign itself back to geographical pods. So currently what the new playoff system is going to be is like the 6 major conferences get automatic bids, and then they get at-large bids for the other 6 teams. And what I think we'll see eventually is you'll have like the old Southwest teams like Texas, Oklahoma, all like in their own little pod. You'll have like Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State in their own pod. And they'll be playing other teams around the country, but the winners of these geographical pods will probably end up being the automatic bids to the playoffs. And then there will be the at-large. I don't know like when this would come about, but I almost see like a return to like geographical supremacy when it comes to football, as opposed to UCLA and Michigan being in the same division, because that just doesn't make sense for many reasons, obviously. Which I think that would be cool. Like that kind of goes back to old school college football where you kind of have these rivalries that are based on physical location.
I don't see how they could implement a 12-team playoff by next year. Like it just seems like there's too much logistics to it to move that quick. Like going from just having the BCS championship game to having the 4-team playoff, that wasn't necessarily a big transition. Like you just add a couple games and they took existing bowls and made them those games. But to throw that many teams in like that, I feel like that's going to take them at least 2 or 3 years to figure out all the logistics. It just,
yeah. I think it's cool that they are going to have some of the the first round of the playoff games on campus, which all of us on the North always complain about having to go play our bowl games in the South, and we don't have the SEC teams come up here and play in December, which kind of closes the gap on the talent deficiency there. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I finally made it, and I just barely made it at that.
Our first show, we just kind of introduced ourselves a little bit and gave a real brief history of our football fandom. So if you want to pipe in with that.
Yeah, it's funny. I went back and listened to the show and was listening to Tho going full nerd on everything. And I was laughing because that a couple years ago, that would have been me. He and I have run in a lot of the same circles in NFL Twitter, draft Twitter, that kind of thing. I throughout college and most of the 2010s, I followed the NFL religiously around like all year round. I was a amateur, so I got a couple paid gigs doing draft scouting and writing for a couple different websites. And a couple of my editors are people that, if you followed the NFL draft community for a while, you'd probably be familiar with Danny Kelly and at The Ringer and Matt Miller. at Bleacher Report. Those are both guys that I wrote with for a while. And I went out to the NFL draft in 2013 or 2014, the Jadeveon Clowney draft.
Nice.
And attended it in person. Actually wound up just before the draft. I was absolutely schlitzed because we were standing in line for a couple hours leading up to the draft, and we ended up downing an entire bottle of vodka. And I very vaguely remember Steve Mariucci and Michael Irvin and Roger Goodell walking right by and getting a picture with them. Just barely remember that. But then I was kind of starting to sober up as the draft, maybe 20 minutes or so before the draft started. And so I went down below to go to the bathroom, and I'm standing there taking a leak, and a very large person walked up next to me, and just kind of standing there and just started glancing, did one of those. And it was Mike Evans standing right there.
Nice. I like that.
And he finished up and walked over to wash his hands, and I finished up and walked over to wash my hands. And I was just sort of like, when I see celebrities in person, I usually don't talk to them. I don't approach them. I don't get weird with them. I just kind of appreciate the fact that I'm near them. And so I just kind of watched him out of the corner of my eye. He stood up there. He's wearing kind of like a dark red suit. He stood there and he was kind of like hitched up his jacket. And you could see that he was like shaking, like trying to calm his nerves, settle himself down, just kind of looked at himself in the mirror for a minute. And then he turned around and walked out. And I went back out and got in my seat and looked up, and he was like right up there around near the stage. Yeah, so I was just deeply immersed in football for a really long time. And then just over the last couple of years with life and having a kid and everything, I've started getting away from it. But so I mean, even I sent you guys my picks earlier for the first episode, and I realized that I only did 2 wild card teams per conference. So like, I didn't even remember that there's a third wild card spot now. It's just like that's how detached from the game that I've gotten. But I grew up a Seahawks fan. Just I slogged through the 90s and the 2000s rooting for the Seahawks, and then it finally paid off for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just been more torment and agony over the last couple of years. And now I've got the Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of to the point where I don't know if I'm still a Seahawks fan or if I'm just a Russell Wilson fan. And I'm going to let this season kind of decide that for me. I'm going to see if
week one's going to decide that for you, maybe.
Right. I tweeted today that I hope that that Russ drops 50 on him, just because even that won't necessarily decide my fandom one way or the other. But the whole way that whole thing went down just really pissed me off. I've been a big let Russ cook advocate for a long time, and I'm actually friends with the guy who coined that, who got that phrase started.
Oh, nice.
I could take over the entire show ranting about Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, but I won't. We'll just leave it at that.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
Did you follow any college teams, or mostly?
I did for while I was doing the draft scouting, especially.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot then, but it's been probably 5 or 6 years now since I've really been able to follow it closely. I got into politics more than football.
And that's a crying shame. That's a crying shame.
Yeah. I never really had a college team that I like really followed that closely. I was a big Matt Barkley fan when he was in college, so I followed the Matt Barkley Andrew Luck thing pretty closely. I remember that one game that they played each other and they went to like 4 overtimes. It was an amazing game. And then growing up in Seattle, I was friends with lots of Huskies fans, so I kind of followed the Huskies. I was a big Jalen Strong fan when he was at ASU, so I kind of followed ASU a little bit. So that's I've just been more kind of fans of players, and then I would sort of follow them for a little while, and but it was more generally just focused on draft coverage.
Did anybody else on this show play?
I tried when I was in high school, but I was pretty little back then, like thin and non-muscular. And so after getting tossed, I was a receiver and they would hit me, a DB would hit me, and I would literally go in the air. And then 2-a-days came. That was like off-season practice or something. And then 2-a-days came, and I thought, well, I'm not going to stop having summer 2 weeks before the rest of my friends. No way. And so I didn't play anymore.
I played flag football in college.
My flag football league started last night, so it's
Nice.
Mark's big in the flag football.
And high school, I went to a private Christian that only had basketball for boys, so it was all basketball.
What do you play now? What position do you play now?
In flag football,
Yeah.
receiver,
Yeah.
receiver, and safety or D-back.
Yeah.
I was West Kentucky All-Star as a free safety.
Nice. You got to pop
Justin
people.
here, so.
It's funny because I'll sit with my son and we'll like watch a football game and I'll break down the defense and explain, like, especially on a broken play that ends up like the offense gets a big gain out of it or something. And I'll sit there and I'll like go through it and break down who missed coverages and where guys got out of position and stuff. He's like, "How do you know that?" Like, I just watch film all the time. Like, our coach letting me run the defense from the safety position. Like, I called all the lines or all the plays from the line, like called all the blitzes and the coverages and everything. And so, but like I would just watch film all the time and watch what other teams did, so that when we came to the line, like looking at their formation and the way they're set up and the way the quarterbacks, counting off cadences and stuff, I could get a pretty good idea of what they were going to run and kind of run things from there. If my coach had told me if I'd been 20 pounds heavier, I had 4 D1 schools that inquired, but I was 6'5", 165 pounds, and nobody would touch me because I was too skinny. Like, and it's held up. Like, they didn't think that I had the frame to put the weight on to be a competitive D1 football player. And they were right. I went and played college basketball for about a year, and I never could gain weight. I am at 38 years old. I'm now at what my playing weight was supposed to be. So.
Finally made it. You have any years of eligibility left, or is that all exhausted?
Yeah.
Actually, I do have 2.5 years of eligibility left. But my knees.
I was going to say, how would your knees take it?
Oh. I can barely keep up with the old man basketball I do once a week.
I mean, never mind. We won't get into the woke stuff. Buck, week 1.
Yeah, week 1.
What stands out to you, week 1?
Honestly, this seems like a cheap, easy out here, but the game tomorrow night stands out at me because I know this is the talking points, but it is for me too. It could be a Super Bowl preview, honestly. Not the one I picked, but it could be. And I like both of the teams. I know I mentioned that I like the Bills for, not as a fan, but I just like Josh Allen. I have since he came in. And now, I think at some point I'm going to have to hate them as the season goes on because they're going to be obviously competition if we both get to the playoffs. But I also love the Rams. Cooper Kupp is just, I think I mentioned this in our first episode. I love him. I love Cooper Kupp. And I thought the Rams last year, I kept telling myself, this is kind of, they're built like the Raiders should be. A quarterback, kind of journeyman, but pretty good at quarterback. At the time, we needed a Cooper Kupp at receiver. We have one now. The defensive end, Max Crosby, and obviously Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in the NFL, in my opinion, but a strong defensive end. And so and then of course at the time, the coach for the Rams was off the John Gruden tree of coaching. That since doesn't really matter for us anymore. But so I always looked at the Rams as a similarly built team and coached team. And so I kept thinking we can do that too. So the game tomorrow night stands out first and foremost because I can't wait to watch it. And there's a few teams I'm curious about. The Buccaneers and the Cowboys game is going to be interesting. I'm not sure where either of those teams are quite at this moment. Brady's strange outing during camp, and both teams have O-line issues. I think that's interesting. The Philly game against Detroit. I don't know that Detroit's very formidable, but as an opponent, but I think Philly could be making that leap, and I kind of like Jalen Hurts, so that interests me. And where is Aaron Rodgers? What's he going to look like without the best receiver in football? I'm honestly curious about that too. So those are the things off the top of my head after kind of going over the schedule that pop out to me.
The Bucks the Bucks and the Cowboys game is interesting to me too, but it's not for the reason that you might think. It has nothing to do with Brady. I think that Bucks are going to win this game. I think they're going to win it by double digits. And the top storyline, like coming out of that game, is going to be Mike McCarthy's job status. I don't think he's going to survive the season.
Okay. That's when you think they got Sean Payton on the back burner?
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they're going to be like 3-5, 3-6, and Jerry Jones is going to be like, this isn't working out. Sean Payton mysteriously retires last year. He's still pretty young for a head coach. And you know that Jones has always wanted him back there since his time he was there with Parcells, right? And you know that Jones and Payton have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested. I think that will be one of the headlines running on ESPN next week is Cowboys lose big and what's going on with Mike McCarthy.
Be interesting if we can cut this clip in a couple of weeks and say Mark was right.
There we go.
So I was also looking at the Dallas game. Just see, I'm on the other side of that. I think Dallas is actually going to have a good season. I think they're going to start to kind of put some stuff together and figure stuff out. Like they don't have the Amari Cooper stuff anymore. They don't have like Zeke seems to be past some of his dumb drama type stuff. They also have a good complement to him in the backfield. Like they seem to be a relatively sound team, and I think they may start to settle in a little bit. I'm also kind of a Dak fan a little bit. I don't know why that would be, but I think Dak is a very good quarterback, and I think he has room to grow into, especially if they as they start to settle in and get comfortable with what they got going on. Especially if the offensive line can kind of shore itself up a little bit and be at least serviceable, because he can run. Like he doesn't need the offensive line to be spectacular. He just needs it to be good enough.
My one concern is, I think Raiders have issues with possibly O-line, but when it's the left tackle, which is what it is on Dallas, that's the one that scares me. The left tackle and the center are for me, the ones that scare me. So you are right, though. I kind of like Dak as well, even though he's on a team that I like to root against. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what they were trying to get someone out of retirement at left tackle, and it was the guy who was a longtime Cincinnati Bengal, and he was on the Rams last year for their Super Bowl run.
Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah, that's who they were trying to get, and it looks like they pulled someone instead off Philly's trash.
Jason Peters.
Is that who it was? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I'd heard. I think that my big, if you saw the picks that I made, I had one probably fairly big surprise pick, and that was the Jaguars. I picked them to win the AFC South and to actually go all the way to the AFC Championship game and then lose to the Broncos. And the reason for that is because having a quality quarterback that is simpatico with a good offensive head coach can overcome a lot of issues. And they've been that team has been in the doghouse for a very long time, the NFL doghouse. I actually, for a period of time there, I followed the Jaguars pretty close. I ended up dating a couple different girls that were big Jaguars fans. And for that reason, I
thought he was going the cheerleader route here for a second.
I was going practice squad.
I fell into the Jaguars culture there, and it's like, if any of you guys have any of you guys ever followed soccer, like followed a soccer team closely at all?
Yes.
You know how soccer fandom is, that it's like super rabid and there's like a really cohesive community around the team. That's how the Jaguars are. Jaguars fans are fucking bonkers.
Duval, they always talk about that, the county.
Duval. Yeah. That so I just it's kind of been a long time coming, and if you watch film of Lawrence last year, there was there was a lot of cases where he was the one who was in tune with the offense and everybody else wasn't. His receivers were running bad routes. They had a lot of option routes in their system, and so where the receiver has multiple routes that he can run based on the positioning of the defense, and the receiver would pick one and he'd pick the right one, and so then he'd throw a pick, and it looks bad for him. But he was actually, if you go back and you look at the film, he actually was the one who was in the right. Now they've surrounded him with a lot better talent, and he has, for the first time in his career, he's got a competent head coach around him, who's also an offensively oriented head coach. I'm very biased toward offensive sports. Like, it doesn't matter what the sport is. I think that the whole like defense wins championships, sure, fine, whatever. But if you're starting out, if I was starting out building a team from the ground up, I would build the offense before I built the defense, because you can't win games 0-0. You just can't. And in the NFL, you're not going to shut everybody out. You're not going to keep everybody under 20 points a game. The teams that keep anybody under, 15 points a game is like legendary status. That's like 2013 Seahawks is 15 points a game. Nobody does that. So you're going to have to be, at the minimum, you're going to have to be able to put up 3 touchdowns a game just to be competitive. So for me, if I'm building a team, I'm going to build the offense first. And I would rather try to win in a shootout than a defensive slugfest, just because I think the odds are more in your favor. So in this case, I think that the Jaguars offense is going to be able to put up points this year. And they're not playing in that great of a division. So I think they're going to be a clear head and shoulders above the rest of their division. I like Matt Ryan. I think that he's kind of doing his last little little brouhaha in Indy.
Yeah.
Right. But and I think he's probably going to be more successful than people think. But I think the Jaguars have the potential to have a very good offense. I think the 2022 Jaguars are going to be like the 2021 Bengals, where they kind of come from nowhere, but you have the young superstar quarterback who everyone had questions about, who all of a sudden seems to have put it together, and he takes off, and he's like simpatico with his head coach. That's what I'm anticipating. So I think this first game of the season against the Commanders, I think the Commanders are going to get the wheels run off of them. Fucking Commanders. That's such a stupid.
We're not allowed to say that word on the
Okay, good. Yeah, the Redskins. Yeah, the Redskins. The Redskins are going to get scalped.
I'm a
Let's put it
16th
that way.
Cherokee, so I give you permission.
Woohoo!
Nice.
I think I am too.
Yeah, Doug Peterson turned Nick Foles into a Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
So he knows how to coach quarterbacks,
Yeah.
much to my chagrin. Brady threw for 500 yards in that game, and they still lost. That was insane. And then
Right.
with Jaguars last year, nothing gave me more satisfaction than to see Urban Meyer just completely fail.
Yeah. What a mess.
Kicking the kicker.
That was the most confusing story of that whole saga, and there were a lot. Like, there was the whole partying after the Cincinnati game that he's receiving a lap dance from a lady at a bar or something. There's a lot of weird
Guy's
stuff
living
going
his
on with
best
Urban Meyer.
So speaking of Cincinnati, my Substack article that I'm thinking on and going to try to finish up tomorrow, I'm going to look at a few of the interdivision games, and one of them that I'm looking at to write about is Pittsburgh Cincinnati, that matchup this week. What do y'all think about that? Since you did say something about them.
I think Pittsburgh's going to be quite bad this year.
Same. And I kind of, against my better instincts sometimes, I kind of like that coach. And I began to like him after Antonio Brown came to the Raiders and then went to the Patriots and then went to the Tampa
For a couple
Bay.
weeks. Yeah.
It made me realize this guy's an absolute psycho for real. He's lost his mind. And that coach somehow kept him in check when Bill Belichick couldn't do it, nor John Gruden, and nor really Tom Brady. So I kind of like that coach, but I think this game is you're looking at a great team versus a rebuilding team. And the great team in this case has been waiting to beat up on this rebuilding team for a long time. And despite the fact that I think their whole welcome to the jungle shtick is stupid, and all these teams try to act like they have a Raider Nation and kind of a black hole, and it's just corny, including the Bengals. I just think the Steelers are in rebuild mode, and Cincy's great. The quarterbacks acts kind of like a tool, but I think they're really good despite me not really wanting to like them. I do love the receiving core, by the way, but I think Cincy's going to smoke Pittsburgh, and I think they've been wanting to do that for a long time consistently.
You have the right vibe of Cincy fans. I lived in Cincinnati for 6 months, and Reds fans, Bengals fans, they're all just awful people. But I actually like the Bengals team. Like, I like Burrow as a quarterback. I do think they will win this game against Pittsburgh. I mean, Trubisky, I think, is starting, right? Didn't Tom come out and say that? Pickett will probably start at some point. But Cincinnati has a better team. I think they might experience a little bit of like the Super Bowl loser hangover. Like, you never see like the team that lost in the Super Bowl, or you rarely see them make it back unless it's the Patriots. But I think you might see that with Cincinnati. And but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. I'm not super high on the Ravens either. So, I mean, just by being in a division with the Ravens and the Steelers, and I'm not high on either of those teams, Cincinnati could make it back to the playoffs, but I don't think we'll see the same run that they made last year.
So they are for sure starting Trubisky.
Yes.
All right. Well, then that changes my entire thoughts on this, because if they were going to be starting like literally anybody other than Trubisky, I'd have said this could have the potential to be a competitive game, especially because, like Mark was talking about, with the Super Bowl loser hangover, and Joe Burrow hasn't played any in the preseason. There is a potential that they could come out sluggish and not really have their feet under them. And if Pittsburgh came out ready to play with a quarterback who had something to prove, then they have a chance to make it competitive. But if it's Trubisky, as a Packers fan, I watched him enough in Chicago. Like, I have absolutely no faith in that dude. I don't know that he's a third stringer.
We did correct you in our first show when you said that Mason Rudolph was the backup, which he actually was for like a day or so here this week. And then Tomlin said it was a clerical error that he had Pickett third behind Mason Rudolph. So you were right for a day.
technically right, the best kind of right.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Libertarians love doing that.
We're also all Futurama fans.
So you brought up the Packers, Buck, Mr. Packers fan, Justin over here. Will Aaron Rodgers be telling everyone to relax after they lose to the Vikings on Sunday?
Ooh, are you asking me this? Let me get to know
all of you.
I like that one. Well, I this was a tougher one. I did pick Green Bay because until Rodgers starts losing, which isn't usually till game one of the playoffs, I'm going to pick them
to the Niners.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I will watch that one for you guys. If you don't know, I have 3 flat screens that go across my little TV room, so I have them all going. I'll have that game on because I'm curious. Kirk Cousins is interesting. A friend of mine who roots for the Minnesota Vikings tells me Cousins plays like he's got really small balls. So I'm going to have to start noticing this, what you mean by that. And he goes, he's going to get you like 280 yards and maybe 2 touchdowns, and then they might run some. And you kind of have to hope that works for the Vikings. I will say, relative to that, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play like he's got small balls. So no. I'm picking Green Bay in this one, although in my notes I thought this could be either way, and it could be a very close game too. So I'm curious to see what Aaron looks like without the number 1 wide receiver.
I think that his number 1 wide receiver is going to be Aaron Jones.
Yeah, you can see that.
I think as long as he holds up physically, he may lead the league in touches this year. Because honestly, part of that is who else is going to?
Where's he going with the ball? Yeah,
right. Yeah, but I mean, Rodgers is apart from Adams. Rodgers has he's made a lot of careers for guys. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson, yeah.
Yeah, he was a great player, but he wasn't. Jordy Nelson with Aaron Rodgers is a different thing than Jordy Nelson without him.
Yeah, well, he came to the Raiders briefly, and it was not the same. You know,
Right.
I'm thinking like, yeah, we're getting this. It's different than Devontae Adams, but I was thinking we're getting this great receiver from the Packers. Just wait. And he was good. He was good, but it wasn't the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing about Jordy Nelson is his off-season workout was working on the farm all summer.
Country strong.
Yeah, he was a real dude.
I think the modern version of modern. I mean, Jordy Nelson retired, I don't know, 5 years ago.
So, yeah, it was pretty recent.
The modern version of Jordy Nelson is his name just slipped my mind. The Vikings.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
White dude for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen.
Adam Thielen. Thank you. Yeah. He's the reincarnation of Jordy Nelson.
Julian Edelman had a little bit of dog in him too.
Yeah. I'm very. I really. I don't have a strong opinion on the Packers either direction this season. I don't like. It wouldn't shock me if I picked them to win the division, just because kind of for lack. I mean, it's going to be them or the Vikings really. So I just kind of and then when it comes down to it, would I rather have Rodgers or Cousins? That's kind of how I'll break the tie. And so I'd rather have Rodgers with less of a supporting cast than Cousins with more of a supporting cast.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I could see the Packers being god awful this year. Like I could see them just kind of sputtering and winning 5 or 6 games and Rodgers just kind of rides off into the sunset. And I could see them going on a tear and winning the conference. It's hard for me to really predict exactly what they're going to do. It's going to really rise and fall on Rodgers. And the fact that he's gone out and he's been like doing like ayahuasca and everything, I don't know whether to say like this is a positive sign for him or not. Because on one hand, the dude could do with being a little less high strung. And so maybe that would make him, maybe he chills out a little bit and he has a little more perspective and he's not so intense and he's not like ripping the livers out of rookie wide receivers who don't do what he wants them to do. At the same time, maybe he just kind of gets like less invested in football and he's like, man, there's bigger stuff, there's more important things to worry about. So he doesn't have the same emotional commitment to the game. I could see it going either way. So the Packers are kind of a big enigma wrapped in a mystery for me this year.
What do you think, Mark?
I'm pretty high on the Vikings this year, but against my better judgment because I've never trusted Cousins. I don't even like Cousins, but I believe in his wide receivers. I think Justin Jefferson is definitely top 3 in the league. They just added Jalen Reagor, who I think will fit in well with that offense. Obviously, their coach is a McVay assistant, so he's going to open things up on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the field. And you got Dalvin Cook, who has struggled with injuries lately, but Madison behind him is a more than capable running back. So I'm really high on the Vikings, mainly because of their offense, but I could also see Cousins screwing all that up too.
My KJ Osborne dynasty shares were very sad to hear about the Reagor trade. There's a deep cut for you.
Yeah, that is deep.
So I think the Packers are going to be all right. I remember not that many years ago when Greg Jennings left for the Vikings and Donald Driver retired and everybody was like, oh my God, they don't have any receivers anymore. Who's Aaron Rodgers going to throw the ball to? And then you saw James Jones and Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and then eventually Devontae Adams. Like he develops these guys through the way he handles himself and maybe the way he handles them, because he handles them pretty roughly. Like you either get your shit together and you make the right calls and you catch the ball and do what you're supposed to, or you kind of get flushed out. And I think Alan Lazard is like stupid tall and strong and fast. Like he is poised to be Aaron Rodgers' like number 1 dude. Like he could light up the field if they are clicking. And then they've still got Randall Cobb. They've still got decent tight ends. Like you said, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are both good receiving backs coming out of the backfield. Like, I think they're going to be fine. They're going to distribute the ball around, and somebody's going to emerge as, you know, that stud receiver.
Do they have Bakhtiari back?
Yeah, I think he did come back. I need to double check that, but I'm almost positive that I had seen it during the offseason that he was coming back.
Yeah, I know he was coming back. I just wasn't sure if he was fully back.
Or
like
if he's healthy.
Yeah.
I'll check on it.
And I mean, who was the two rookie receivers? They got Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and both of those guys, I still got a toe dipped in my old draft scouting communities, and they're both good fits for the team. They're both good fits as long as they keep their shit together. Dobbs especially, he's a guy that's very interesting to me in my rookie drafts this year. I wound up with a lot of him.
Yeah, he's tempting because of what else is there, right?
Right.
And you have Rodgers throwing, like he's going to throw to somebody. So
right.
And I can see everybody's kind of like down on Sammy Watkins because he's been injured and had a lot of issues over the last few seasons. Like, I could see him kind of falling into that James Jones role where he's like he's big for a touchdown here and there, but he's not going to give you like a ton of yards. But he could produce like a big catch when they need to finish off a scoring drive. Like that. I mean, that's literally all James Jones did. Like, if you had him on your fantasy team for the time he was with the Packers, you were entirely touchdown dependent. But if it got tight, you could almost count on that touchdown coming. So like, I see Sammy Watkins has the potential to fill that kind of role. Like, he's not going to be the number one. He's not even going to be the number two. Like, he's going to be the number 4, but he's going to be productive when Rodgers needs a productive receiver.
He's a similar profile of receiver to Devontae Adams too. Similar body type, similar movement. And I just looked it up. If you'd have asked me to tell you how old Sammy Watkins is, I wouldn't have been able to guess. I would have said in his 30s.
28?
29.
Oh.
That's insane. It seems like he's been around forever.
Yeah.
He's only 29. And he doesn't have a lot of miles on him because he's been injured half his career.
Interesting. So the most interesting matchup this weekend to me is Baker Mayfield is one petty SOB. And he's got Cleveland. I do too. Cleveland, week 1. And he wants revenge. And I'm actually rooting for him. And I think Carolina will win that game because I don't think Cleveland's going to do a whole lot until Deshaun starts playing. And I do need Baker to throw some touchdowns to DJ Moore because I kind of reached on him in a draft, didn't I, Justin?
I really liked the Panthers this year too. I liked Tho's take on their potential.
Tho liked DJ Moore so much. Mark like went out of his way to draft him. It was impressive.
You guys know Tho speaks with such conviction, and I'm like, you know what? He convinced me that DJ Moore is going to put up big numbers this year. It's not like I drafted him in the first round, but it was still a reach. If Matt McCaffrey can stay healthy this year, which I hope he does. I mean, he's so much fun to watch when he is healthy. They could be a playoff team,
especially in the South.
That division's wide open.
Yeah,
you've got Tampa Bay, but they seem like the favorite just because who else is there? But there's always Brady's 46 now.
45. Is he 46? I think he's my age, 45, which is
so
nuts.
It's all he has to do is inhale wrong, and that could be the end of it for him. Shit, I've had that happen to me a couple times.
Speak that stuff into existence, man. Come on.
My goodness, Justin. Didn't inhale.
Take a deep breath, and suddenly I can't walk for a week.
I think he's insinuating that Brady needs to take ayahuasca as well.
Yeah.
When he was disappeared for a couple weeks, I was like, dude's down in the Amazon. He got a tip from
he saw what Aaron said, and he's like, hold up.
I got Carolina in this one too, and I find this one curious to watch. It'll be fun, and I think Baker's going to come out firing, and the Cleveland Browns don't really have an answer to that. I mean, I love Chubb, but he's going to be all they have at this point until, again, interestingly enough, week 1, Cleveland at Carolina. When Deshaun Watson gets back, I think it's week 11, they're at the Houston Texans. Funny how that works, isn't it?
Clearly not a coincidence.
Right.
NFL.
Larry Johnson is curious. I don't know if you guys follow Larry Johnson on Twitter, but he's really into the numerology thing.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was on. He had a really interesting conversation with Hotep Jesus a couple years ago.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm. So a couple of years ago in 2018, I was wanting to. This is like when I was realizing that the Russell Wilson Pete Carroll thing was just not. It was a relationship destined for divorce. I was at that time. I was like the Browns had a couple of first round picks, and I was desperately trying to like stir up something to try to get conversation going about this. Like the Seahawks need to trade Russell Wilson to the Browns because the Browns were a quarterback away, and the Seahawks were clearly not going to maximize Russ. And the longer that they kind of dicked around with him, the more they were going to diminish his value. And I wanted to see Russ be successful somewhere that truly appreciated and maximized him. And then it would be fun to see the Seahawks start over and reboot with a bunch of picks. And I wanted them to draft Baker Mayfield. I wanted them to trade Russ to the Browns and use that number 1 overall pick on Baker Mayfield. Turns out John Schneider was actually talking to the Browns about making a trade almost exactly like that, except he wanted Josh Allen, which in hindsight, that would have worked too. Yeah. But I've been a big Baker Mayfield fan for a long time, and I think he's really gotten a raw deal. I think he's a bit of a loose cannon, and that kind of cuts against him a little bit. But he spent a lot of time around a lot of dysfunction, and he's not a guy who's going to carry you out of the dysfunction necessarily. But if you surround him in a better, less dysfunctional environment, he's a very talented quarterback, and the dude plays with all kinds of grit and balls. Last season, his shoulder was like shredded cheese. Yeah. He shouldn't have been playing on it, but he was gritting through it. And for that reason, I think a lot of people got a really negative impression of his ability. But the guy was playing through injuries that most people wouldn't have played through. They would have just shelved him. But the team didn't have anything else, so he just kept playing through it. And then the team just treated him like shit for it. So yeah, I think he's gonna be in big time revenge mode, and he's gonna be surrounded by some of the best talent that he's ever been around. And he's the Panthers were a bit of a tire fire last year, but it was for reasons. It wasn't because of being a dysfunctional franchise. It was just teams dealing with the issues rebuilding teams go through. So yeah, I think that the Browns the Panthers and the Jaguars are both big, like dark horse candidates. I think people are underestimating a lot.
Yeah. The Panthers were more competitive in more games than they probably should have been last year, for given all the injuries and everything else that was going on with that team. Like they weren't a guaranteed W every week. Like you had to go out and actually, win a football game. And having if they could just get like a little bit of stability on the injury front, like not have everybody hurt all the time, that would make a world of difference. You could say that for every team on any given year, but it seems like for the Panthers, it's like year in and year out. Just it's not is anybody going to get hurt? It's which week are they going to get completely wrecked, and the rest of the season is going to be down the drain.
For the sake of brevity, Mark, should we pick like 3 more like awesome games to kind of work through, and then chart our picks for the rest of the whatever games, and keep record of it?
Yeah. I think you want to talk about the Raiders Chargers, right?
Oh, I mean, that's one of them.
That's one of them I'm going to be.
That is an awesome
right about. So yeah, I would like to talk about that one as well.
I know I started with Bills at Rams. I think that's another one, but I haven't heard all of y'all's opinions. And let's see. Yeah, I mean,
Buck comes with lots of notes. Man.
Yeah, I do.
I think for the Bills Rams,
let's start with
I
that.
do think that is I think that is my Super Bowl pick, if I remember correctly. And I have the Bills winning this season opener. I think it could go either way. It'll probably be a close game. I think you kind of see a slow start for the Rams with all the the whole celebration thing. And teams always seem to start off a little bit slowly at home when they have the ring ceremony. But I think they match up pretty evenly. The Bills will pull it out in the end.
So I agree with that. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think it's going to be kind of a low-scoring game. I don't think either offense is going to come out super hot. It's week one, for one thing. The preseason just almost starters almost don't play at all in the preseason. And I just don't over the last several years, you've really seen like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, offenses don't start clicking right away. And I think these two teams having as good a defenses as both of them do, they're going to come out and really punch each other in the mouth. And so that just the lack of continuity on the offensive side is with that strong a defense on the other side. I think it's going to result in a low scoring game. Like I could see it being under 40 in this game. But yeah, I think the Bills will win, and I think they'll cover. What is it? Was it at still at 2.5, or has it moved?
I think it's
2.5. Yeah.
I think the Bills win and they cover.
Matt?
Yeah, I think I don't really have a lot to add beyond that. I think that I have to try to. It's difficult for me to be impartial on this because I have very strong feelings about the Rams, but I
feel like they're not positive feelings.
No. I'm not really buying the hype on the Rams. I think they've really cashed in year after year, pushing out a lot on the credit card.
Yeah.
To try to go in each year. And they've had a lot of success because of it. But eventually, teams that operate that way, eventually it comes around to bite them. I think of like the Saints a few years ago, and even still persisting to now, where they're just in like cap hell every year. They've got a brilliant cap guy there who like manages to navigate everything for them. But like you can only survive off of credit cards for so long before eventually you have to start paying your debts. And I think Matt Stafford isn't getting any younger. And I don't see them making the same run. I picked the 49ers for the division because I think that Trey Lance is legit. And so, yeah. And then in losing Von Miller as well is a pretty big deal. And not just losing him, but now they're going to be playing against him.
Yeah.
And head to head, I'll take Josh Allen over Matt Stafford. So I go back to quarterbacks very often. Quarterback play is really what teams revolve around. They rise and fall with quarterback play. So I think that the Bills like to win chaotically. And I think that this type of game could set them up well for that because the Rams are not a very disciplined team. So I think that that's going to put the Bills into their sweet spot. So I would pick Bills to win and cover.
I'm going with the Bills here as well. Matt kind of echoed some of the same things I was thinking. Yeah, the Bills had trouble, as we saw, with a team like Kansas City when basically Patrick Mahomes took over. Josh Allen was taking over, but Patrick Mahomes was better in that game, in that playoff game. And I don't think Stafford can do that same type of thing that Matt, we know he can't, but he relies on more of a cohesive kind of old school system. Cooper Kupp, I can't say enough about. I love him. But I think with the running quarterback style that Josh Allen can be when he needs to be versus Matt Stafford, not as much, I think it could be a close game. I'm not sure that they're going to like smoke them by any means, but it just seems like the Bills are moving forward and maybe the Rams are kind of sitting where they are because of that credit card aspect. They didn't redo the credit card as much this offseason. And again, Von Miller now going on the Bills defensive end as a Bills defensive end or whatever they're going to call him, linebacker. But I think that those little moves like that, plus the way Josh Allen plays, I love watching him play. I think they're going to win.
So other than the Raiders Chargers game, I think the other game you might have been alluding to was Chiefs and Cardinals.
Yeah, I want to get y'all's thoughts on that one.
I think the Chiefs are going to win. I don't think that the Cardinals are going to have quite. I think the Cardinals are closer to the team that ended the season last year than the one that started. Where they start like 11-2 and finished 11-6, 12-5, whatever it was. I don't trust Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is super talented and a really good quarterback. I don't trust him for an entire season. And obviously, Mahomes has shown over and over again that he is, if not the best quarterback in the league right now. I mean, he's definitely top 3. He does lose, obviously, Tyreek Hill, but they were pretty deep at the receiver position, and he still has his safety valve in Kelsey. So the line right now is Zona or Kansas City by 6, and I think they'll actually cover. I think they'll beat Arizona by a touchdown or more.
Well, and like you said, they lost Tyreek Hill, but they also picked up Juju Smith-Schuster, and he is the Tyreek Hill-esque style of a player. Like he's going to be that speed guy that losing Hill kind of takes away, and so that he may not be the same caliber, but he has that potential. Like you saw that in flashes, especially when he had Roethlisberger. Like when Roethlisberger was really on. You would see Juju have like monster games, and Mahomes is going to be on more often than not. So Juju has that potential to have some monster games, and like you were saying with Arizona, I feel good about that team long term, but I think they're going to probably start slow.
I think that Arizona is going to be a tire fire this year. I think that there's so much drama around that between the front office and Kyler Murray, and even within the front office. I really want I really want the Kyler Murray thing to work, because I mean, even if they are a division rival to ostensibly a team that I follow, I still like Kyler a lot. I like his game, and honestly, I'm more of a fantasy player than an NFL fan at this point. So I want to see fantasy points. And I like seeing like Russell Wilson laid the groundwork for it. And then you see guys like Kyler and Jalen Hurts come through that are getting an opportunity and taking advantage of it precisely because Russ came before them. And I like that. I think that's a cool storyline. But he's got like Eli Manning body language, and he's very clearly a bit of a head case, and not necessarily in a positive way. Like Aaron Rodgers is a head case, but in mostly a positive way. Kyler is just he's kind of a loose cannon, and he doesn't have the luxury to kind of take over and do things his own way and get all emotional and wound up about stuff, because he is small. His size is legit. He's smaller than Russ. His size is a legitimate issue, and he can't just out physical people in the league. He needs to play smarter. And I think that he's still a kid who's kind of got the juices flowing, and being highly drafted being the guy that's like, ooh, are you going to be a professional baseball player or a professional football player? Like that goes to a guy's head, and it clearly has gone to his head. I think it's going to take him a few years of being humbled before he really knuckles down and does what is necessary to be successful. And I think that the Cardinals don't have the luxury of rolling with something like that, and they're just going to wind up in a quarterback hell, basically.
Yeah.
Kyler's excuse for not studying as much game tape is that he sees plays happen before they happen or whatever. And number one, I mean, lots of quarterbacks in the league can also say that about themselves, but also safeties in the league can say that on the other side a lot more than they could in the Big 12.
Right. And if it gets out that you think that way, then NFL level defenders are going to know that you think that way. And so they're going to deliberately bait you. and that was happening last year. So yeah, I think that I think they're going to be the worst team in the division this year.
Wow.
There's another clip to clip.
That's a good one. Yeah. I think he's going to be humbled the first 2 weeks for sure. I agree. He's got something's going on upstairs. It's odd. And I think despite the fact that the Chiefs are the only team in the AFC West that didn't get better per se, they have a lot of room to kind of chill out while the rest of us catch up to them, unfortunately. And I think they're going to, in an old-fashioned term, my grandma would say, is put a whooping on Arizona.
Nice. And now we got Raiders, and we'll close out with Raiders and Chargers.
That one could be good.
How about you just start us off with this one, Buck?
Let's get the full rant.
I'm picking the Chargers. No. I'm picking the Raiders, of course, here. And until they prove otherwise, I will. It's not a home game for the Chargers, so don't let the Raiders at Chargers thing fool you. Wait till you see the ratio of Raiders fans to Chargers fans when you're in Los Angeles. It's going to be impressive. So it's going to be loud. They're going to boo the Chargers most of the time. I think, obviously, I love that quarterback on the Chargers. He's great. And I would say, I hate to say it, he's probably better than DC. But I think our coach is better. I think overall this team is better. Our wide receiving core is certainly better. And what it could come down to is the special teams, which is by far better on the Raiders. And we shall see. I'm guessing, I have a prediction. Check this one out. Khalil Mack will not sack Derek Carr. I'll say that. I think it's going to be interesting. The last time they played, he did. The time before that, he did not. So I'm hoping this coach has a game plan to not allow that to happen. Joey Bosa gets run over by us the last couple of times we played him. I've seen Joey. It's Joey, right? I get the two. Yeah, it's Joey Nix on the Niners. Joey gets gassed very, very easily, and when the Raiders run right in his direction with running backs, he gets gassed quickly. And if you watch that last game where we made it to the playoffs and they didn't, he looked gassed the whole last 35 to 40 minutes of that game. So we have his number on that. I think Hunter Renfrow is going to have a giant game. I think the running game is going to be huge, but Hunter Renfrow is going to be big. They've got this J.C. Jackson guy on as a corner on the Chargers. He's out, and that's going to hurt because we have the best receiver in the league. And so I do think for the first time since college, we're going to see DC to DA for a touchdown, which I cannot wait for. But I do think Hunter Renfrow is going to have a giant game, and Waller is playing. The contract stuff's going to be figured out. And so I think we just have too much star power in the wide receiving area, including Waller, and on the running back front too. And to Matt's point earlier, it's going to be an offensive shootout. It probably won't be a low-scoring defensive game is my guess, although I like Justin's point on this is game one. It does seem that when you see game one and these star players haven't played, sometimes it's a little bit slower to start than you think. I remember going to Oakland a few years ago for Chargers at Oakland, and we ended up winning, but it was a kind of a slow start because both quarterbacks, I think at the time it was Rivers, hadn't played in preseason. So at first I'm there like, man, this is sluggish start, but it ended up getting big. That's going to happen in this game. I cannot wait to see this one, as you might imagine. Matt also mentioned a good quarterback carrying a team out of dysfunction, and that maybe Baker Mayfield can't do that. I know who can, and it's Derek Carr, number 4, because he did it last year. He lost his head coach, the guy that called the plays. He lost his number 1 wide receiver to an unfortunate accident, which I made a funny joke about. But and they made it to the playoffs without the number 1 wide receiver and without a head coach that calls the plays, that designs everything. So that was all on Derek Carr. I have no doubt that the fact that he did that is the biggest reason why Josh McDaniels and the current regime re-signed him for several years. So Josh McDaniels will have this team ready to play, and it's going to be impressive to people that haven't watched them during preseason. And you're going to realize this McDaniels guy, despite his little hiccup in Denver, has his shit together and will have this team dialed in. We had less than 100 yards in penalties during the entire preseason. That hasn't happened to any team, and it was some crazy record. And that's been our biggest issue, the most penalized team in the league since I've been a kid. And of course, I have conspiracy theories about it. But miraculously, Josh McDaniels comes there, and so far we aren't that. And I don't know how that works, but maybe my conspiracy theories coming that the league loves the Patriot people and hates the Raiders. Somehow it's switching and it's coming down into our favor because of Josh McDaniels. We shall see. I can't wait for this game. And I think the Raiders win by, it could be a special teams field goal that wins this.
I think the Chargers are going to win this game, but
Shut
it's
up,
going to be
Mark.
close. I'm going to use Matt's principle here. I think Herbert is a little bit better than, maybe not a little bit better. I think Herbert is the NFL MVP this year. I may have said that in the last show. I am interested, though, in this coaching matchup. So with the Chargers, I mean, the show's called Clock Management, Game Management. That dude, I can't say it. What is his name? Chargers coach?
I can't remember. Well, I call him Boy Blunder.
Yeah. He's not the best at game management. I do like his like he refuses to kick field goals against Kansas City inside the 50 or in field goal range or whatever, which I actually I mean, I think that's cool innovation, but when it doesn't work out for you, then it kind of comes back to bite you. There were, I mean, obviously there was that game you referenced at the end of last year where he really botched the ending against the Raiders, which gave them the playoff spot. And then as for McDaniels, I'm actually reading a Parcells biography right now. And so Belichick tutors under Bill Parcells with the New York Giants in the late 80s, early 90s, leaves to go to Cleveland, fails in Cleveland, comes back, tutors under Parcells again, and then obviously goes to the Patriots, and the rest is history there. You got McDaniels kind of following that same path where he leaves Belichick, fails in Denver, goes back to Belichick, and now he's getting his second chance in Oakland. So you comparing McDaniels to Belichick there is actually pretty apt, and there's historical precedent.
All right, I'll go. I'm also going to go with the Chargers on this one. Sorry, but I really like the Raiders, and I think the Raiders have the potential to have a very good season, but I don't think they started out in week one. I think there's a certain degree to which the Raiders thrive under like the chaos that you saw last year, and coming in with everything like kind of going right.
It's weird.
It doesn't feel like a good scenario for them to come out. So, you know, it's like the underdog thing. Like when you know that you're just constantly getting kicked, you fight a little bit harder. And coming into the season with things not being like complete turmoil, it feels like that kind of puts them behind the eight ball in a completely different way. So I also think that the Chargers are going to kind of have a chip on their shoulder because of the way they ended last season to come out and start strong and to really like punch the Raiders in the mouth and be like, we're back, bitch. Let's go. Like that's kind of what I see this game as. Like it's less I think it's going to be less of a preview of the rest of the season and more of a recap of last season, like coming back for to get theirs back.
Man, I'm really going back and forth on this one because I can see it. I can see it going both ways. I'm a big Josh McDaniels fan. I've been wanting to see him out on his own for a while, and then the idea of pairing Derek Carr with Devontae Adams is. I've never been a real big fan of Derek Carr, but I've always felt like he's underrated, but he's a large part of his value is that he's a tryhard, and that can go a long ways, especially if you're put together with a quality coach and with your favorite wide receiver. The shower narrative can carry some guys a long ways. I think that the Chargers defense I would take straight up over the Raiders defense. And then I would take Justin Herbert over Derek Carr. But the Raiders being a disciplined force under McDaniels, I think can't be underestimated. And I'm very curious to see if Brandon Staley, the head coach for the Chargers, I'm very curious to see if how the last season ended sticks in his head. If that's the type of thing that can seem like nothing. It can be kind of like, yeah, whatever, just it sucks and we'll move on from it. But every time the end of the game is coming up and there's clock management and like that can be something that keeps coming back. And if he has one more blunder, then like everyone's going to be thinking and talking about it. And he's not going to be able to get out of it. Like that could be the type of thing that ends up defining a guy. So I'm very curious. He's a very innovative, modern young coach who, like you talked about, like going for 2 and going for it on 4th down. Like those are very good things to see from a coach, and I think those make a team better for sure. At the same time, you've got a defensive head coach with a team that I think that the team is going to have to win on the back of on Herbert's shoulders, and. Is Herbert ready to be the captain of the offense while Brandon Staley manages his defense? I don't know. So these are just kind of the things that I think about as I'm looking at sort of the season profile for it. And in this particular game, I think I'm gonna take the Raiders, and yeah, I think I'm gonna take the Raiders in a close one. But I'll take the Chargers on the season. I think that's where I'm sitting right now. And then I just have to get a shout in here at the end that with the Seahawks and the Broncos.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
that. So I think that people are picking the Broncos. I mean, the line is 6.5. I think people are picking the Broncos to kind of come in and sort of walk all over the Seahawks. And I made the joke earlier about him dropping 50. I don't think that's going to happen. Russ has basically the entire time he's been in Seattle, he has struggled against the Seahawks defense. The Seahawks scheme is one that he just struggles to pick apart. And when you have Pete Carroll guys who have gone elsewhere. You've had Gus Bradley, who's down in Los Angeles with the Chargers now. When you've had different Pete Carroll acolytes who've gone on to other teams, when the Seahawks have played those teams that are running a Pete Carroll style defense, Russ has struggled against them more than usual. At the same time, he's going to be super motivated. I mean, he's going to be super motivated. He's going to get booed. Like I guarantee you, he's going to get booed pretty massively.
You think so?
In the stadium. Yeah. Seahawks fans are
they're like Philly fans.
They're insecure.
Boo Santa Claus.
Yeah, right. And they like everyone is super. The way that the whole thing worked out just really it left a really bad taste in the mouth for a lot of people. So, it's I keep it simple here. So I think that this game is actually going to be closer than people think. And I can't put a prediction on it because I can't separate my emotions out from it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks won. And wow. I think that the Seahawks are going to be better this year than people think, which pisses me off because I don't want them to be. Like, I want them to be bad because, like, get the draft picks, recoup, yada, yada, yada. Like, last thing I want is for them to be good. And then Pete's like, oh, I've really got something in this Geno Smith guy. So maybe actually instead of drafting a quarterback, let's go rebuild the defense because that's a very Pete Carroll type of thing to do. But in fairness, Geno is better than people appreciate. He actually can be functional as a with a quality team around him. And the Seahawks were a good team last year with issues that had more to do with things apart from the talent of the team. The Seahawks underperformed their actual talent last year, which is what happens when you have instability with a quarterback. This year, getting a whole offseason as a unit, the defense has gotten better. The defense is going to be very good this year, and the offensive line is like they got two bookend tackles that are like going to be straight out of the gate starters and maybe like Pro Bowl level players right away. in Charles Cross at left tackle and Abraham Lucas at right tackle. Both of them are very good, especially as pass blockers. And then
I'm going to need you to tell me that Rashad Penny will be a good pick in fantasy.
I was just about to bring up the running backs. So Rashad Penny will be the number 1 running back over Kenneth Walker. The question is, how long will his health hold up? Will he stay healthy? And the Seahawks prefer to have multiple backs kind of spelling each other if they can. If one of them is clearly head and shoulders above the other one, then they'll like with Marshawn, like you're not going to like spell Marshawn, but the Seahawks would rather have a dual-headed running back. So running back attack. So Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny will both end up getting, I'd say, assuming all goes well and they're both healthy and neither one of them has major fuck ups or whatever, I'd say it'll probably be something like 60-40 or 65-35 in favor of Penny. That would be my expectation. The wide receivers are going to be fine. They're going to be great. Offensive line is going to be quality. So what I foresee with them is that the defense is going to be probably top 5, top 7 in the league. And then the offense is going to be upper half. So yeah, they may be like 11th to 14th, somewhere in there. And you put those together and you're talking about a team that if luck breaks against them, they'll win 7 games. And if luck breaks in their favor, they'll win 10. So, so I picked them in my predictions to be the wild card because I think that the 49ers are going to win the division, but I don't think the division is going to be that great. So I think the 49ers would win the division with 11 wins. Seahawks have 10. That's kind of what I'm anticipating. And then the Rams are around a 500 team, and the Cardinals are 5-6 wins, something like that. That's what I'm anticipating. But yeah, with this game here, I think it's probably going to be low scoring, and it's going to be, you know what? I'll just say it. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game.
There it is. I think I'm going to pick the Broncos, but I don't think they're going to cover the 6.5. I think it'll be like a 3-point kind of slugfest, as you were pointing out there. Also, Kenneth Walker rushed for 5 touchdowns against Michigan last year, so I get a little PTSD when I hear his name.
I'm picking, man, I like Matt's pick. I mean, I hope he's right, but I'm picking the Broncos. Obviously I prefer for an old Raiders rival and the Seahawks to win over a current Raiders rival in the Broncos. But man, Matt really spelled it out. He knows these teams and the tendencies. But I have on the sheet, I picked the Broncos, so I'm going to stick with that.
I think Matt's got homer bias. I think the Broncos are going to walk all over them. I think Geno Smith is a complete dud. Like DK Metcalf is going to have a monster year because the only thing Geno Smith does well is throw it to the number 1 receiver. Other than that, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Well, DK Metcalf looks like the broadside of a barn.
You're throwing punches right now, kind of like Geno did in the locker room in New York.
I'm not. So let me make this clear. I'm not personally a fan of Geno, but there's a couple of guys that I follow on Twitter they're the biggest fucking nerds I've ever seen, and they're both Seahawks fans, but they're very objective. They weren't real big Russ fans, but but they've been doing the deepest film dives and stuff on Geno. They've gone all the way back to his college and tracked all of his tendencies. And I'm talking like they're tracking his tendencies, not just per formation, but like 3-step drop versus 5-step drop versus 7-step drop under center, like everything. They're tracking every single thing. And what they've indicated really is that Geno kind of got a raw deal coming into the league, being part of the fucking Rex Ryan Jets teams. And then he kind of has never really gotten a chance anywhere because he's not great. He's not like a very good quarterback, but he's passable. He makes good decisions, and
he'd be like a Mac Jones type player.
Yeah. Or like a Nick Foles kind of like that sort of where he can come in and he can make the throws and he'll play within the structure of the offense. And if you have a competent play caller and good talent around him, then he'll play to the level of his talent. He's not going to elevate his talent, but he's going to play to the level of it. I didn't buy it at first, but they've convinced me. I don't want them to convince me because I don't want the Seahawks to win games this year. I want the Seahawks to be bad, partly to for the sake of draft capital, and partly to reinforce my Russell Wilson was the one carrying the Seahawks and Pete Carroll fucked up opinion. But yeah, so
Follow your old buddy Justin. Don't put any faith in Gino. Yeah, and that's about all I got. Like I think what Denver did with bringing in Russell Wilson is going to be similar to what Denver did when they brought in Peyton Manning several years ago. I think Jerry Jeudy, if he can stay healthy, has the potential to be a like top 10, if not like top 8, maybe even top 6 receiver in the league with a good quarterback throwing him the ball. Like when he was healthy last year before he got, which granted he didn't play a whole lot before he got hurt, but he looked really good, and I think he has that potential with a good quarterback under center throwing him the ball. I think the Denver defense is going to be pretty loaded up this year, and I think they're going to come out ready to. They were like stupid competitive in games that they shouldn't have been last year. Like that team should have gotten demolished week in and week out, and they didn't. They stuck around and they played
They did
ball
twice last year. There's 2 games I could think of where they did.
They were more competitive than they should have been for what they were last year. And I think this can be that like step over that edge that this could really be kind of a, like I said, I think this is going to be like the recreation of the, that Peyton Manning run.
I'm going to call it now. I already called it that the Broncos win the Super Bowl, but I'm going to call it now that Russ is the MVP this year. And don't forget the name Cortland Sutton.
There it is. It's a good receiver.
Yes.
The Russ moonball at elevation is just going to be
orgasmic, as they say.
I think we know which way Matt's leaning in terms of Seahawks or Russ following.
Yeah, very well may be.
All righty.
All right, boys.
Football starts tomorrow night.
Go set your fantasy
Rams.
lineups.
Yeah, set your lineups. Looking forward to it. Any last words?
Go Raiders.
Let's ride.
End it, Justin.
You end it.
Oh,
I always end it.